scary and risky. Or maybe you can get venture capital or angel investing if it's, that kind of thing. But also students, are good if you're willing to manage it. Students tend to have, more free time and less need for cash. Maybe intern. You should go check out the COC internship program because they get course credits, right? So, I mean, you're going to have the junior programmers, but if you can handle that, then you'll get it done.
The thing is, you start off and it's like, okay, great, yeah, well, here's the first thing. Why don't you try this? And then you never hear from them again.
That's true.
You're like, if the thing ships, you guys actually do get paid. But the crickets chirping, nothing actually happens.
Well, at one point, I remember having a rule of thumb that we had to hire twice as many programmers as we needed because half of them would fail. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but especially if you're going with students, you probably need 4 times as many because 3 of them will flake, and then there's going to be that one person who comes through and, But it's a numbers game, and you definitely have to actively manage. I mean, seriously, go. If you can't get them into your office, then go wherever they are. Well, that's a good question. Very good question.
One question about so one thing I've noticed about tech is that it seems sort of biased towards the youthful side. I never see what I would call elder statesman developers. Never
No.
80. So where did the developers I guess in the gaming industry, where did they go? Did they die? Did they retire early? What happened?
Well, there's this secret young boys network, and they have these closed meetings, and they don't invite us old people to.
I have an answer to that. I've been in the industry for a while, and at one point I worked at a company called 3DO. And at this company were all the old game developers, Bill Budge from the Construction Set, and the guy who wrote Yar's Revenge, the guy who wrote that really horrible Pac-Man cartridge, and they were all working there. I don't know where they are now, but evidently they just sort of hop from company to company in Silicon Valley and just sort of, kind of just try to find jobs that actually will pay them, a very reasonable salary because their days of working for startups are long gone. So they are actually still out there and they are still doing stuff. Some of them have moved beyond games, they moved off to other things. Russ Wetmore, who did Preppy on the Atari, went on to do airline, those displays at the airports. He was putting Atari 100 video in those displays in the airports to go and do the flight status information. They're all still around. If you look them up on the internet, you can find them. They still exist.
Well, and the funny thing about 3DO is it's one of the few venture-funded game companies. So maybe having the resumes was kind of part of the funding, at least initially.
When I was there, it was entirely funded out of Trip Hawkins' pocket, and I believe when they went under, nobody would buy them.
Well, but didn't Trip Hawkins get venture funding to partner? Because he put in a lot.
When we were doing the game console first, I'm sure he had some sort of venture funding.
Yeah.
By the time I went there, it was just a software company, like any other software company, and he was just every so often he'd write a check for $20 million.
Wow.
And he went on
That's
to
cool.
a doing that, I guess.
Huh.
Besides,
Well, there you go.
if you were a programmer back then, you were young then, you're not that old now, you wouldn't be 80.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. The game industry. I'm like.
Sorry, that was a risky question.
No, I'm like the old man of the company, and they're these guys. And the thing is they're mostly in their early 20s, and they, don't have girlfriends and much less, wives and kids, and so it's tough to compete. As a, someone with a family, it's really tough to compete against these 20-somethings who
My
can.
friend and I were discussing this. She's in the healthcare industry. So she was saying, in healthcare, as you get older, they trust you more. But I said, in IT, I think they trust you less as you get older. So there's this sort of inward, that's why I was asking. You never see too many, the tech conferences. I don't see, people with
Yeah.
a lot of gray hair,
But you mentioned earlier the problem with hiring experienced programmers. It's sort of the same thing. A lot of times in IT in general, you get to a certain point, you stop wanting to learn the new stuff. You stop being so excited by it, you start just parking yourself on everything you know. Programmers like that too. If they don't want to learn whatever's new and going out there and spend the time, the extra hours to learn something new, then their skills go away pretty quickly and they end up farmed off to something else.
Right. I do think there is a position for like producers and and people, because they're not, they're tired of the never-ending hamster wheel of learning, so they become a producer because then they've had enough experience that they're going to see like some of the obvious mistakes and thwart them, but they don't actually have to like work 36 hours straight and stuff. And I mean, we've had people that we had to take, force them to leave so they'd go shower, and the thing is there's kind of a myth in the industry about overtime, like being forced to work overtime, and that's true. There is that too, but some of our projects like Blood Rain, they were working like crazy hours and they didn't have to, like no one asked them to. It was plenty good, but they wanted to make it the best, because this is what they're doing like every waking moment. And so when it got close to the wires, they're like, oh, but we want this feature, oh, but we want this feature, and we're like, no, it's fine. And we're like, no. So it's not like we're forcing them to work all these crazy hours. They just do it.
Well, to kind of piggyback on what he was saying, I think the biggest thing is the fact that, I'm a programmer myself. I love to do it. I have passion when I develop. But at some point, when you get to the point where, okay, I've done a lot of programming, kind of only gonna make some money now. So you got to make that transition into the business world and actually make money. Because there's not that much money in programming. There's a good amount. You can make a safety, but it's not going to evolve anymore.
Yeah. Well, maybe you hit the nail on the head with that programming's too much fun. Because any programmer knows what I'm talking about. It's really fun, right? So it's easy to attract people who are young and willing to do it for fun. But as you get older, it's like, now I've got to do the crappy job to pay the bills, So I don't know, maybe that's what it is. It's too fun. And maybe medical software isn't quite as much fun, so,
Once you discover girls, you have other interests.
Right.
Other things seem fun.
Yes.
So the programmers will still discover until they turn 40 or something.
That's true. Yeah, sounds about right. Exactly. So.
Thanks.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Hey guys, I got a lot of great notes from that. I just want to recap a couple things. I think that last point about, when I met Voldi for lunch, what was it, last month, one of the things that struck me was his guys look at what they do as art. And I think that the same is true with a painter. Their canvas is never done. They just stop working on it. Otherwise, it can become a lifelong obsession. I mean, they can always find a new way. And I'm listening to him, and I notice his guys are the same way. I mean, if you've got to tell your guys to go home, we don't need you anymore. We're ahead of schedule. The product's fine, and they still want to work on it. I think it says a lot about the people you have and the environment you've created. And I think that says a lot about Wayforward. A couple of cool points was the first thing you said was, what's the one thing you need to be in business? A customer, right? And we lose sight of that because we read TechCrunch and we say this company raised $1 million, this company raised $3 million, this company raised 35 million. I got to raise capital. I've got to get press. No, what you need to do, you need to find somebody that's actually going to use your product and pay you. And as simple as that sounds, it almost is too simple, and it's like, oh, what's the big deal? It really comes down to that. Because when you get into a heated meeting and you're trying to raise capital, what they're going to push on you a lot of times is, how much money have you made? Who's paying for it? And what are they saying? And if you can go through and talk about the iterations you've gone through and whatever your product you have, because I've gotten feedback and I've gathered this, and this is what my customers are telling me, and this is the improvements we're making, and here's why I need to raise capital to make these improvements, it's a lot easier of a conversation than I have it on a cocktail napkin. I mean, I'm sick of that story where the entrepreneur writes it on a cocktail napkin and then they write him a check for $2 million to go develop it. I mean, guys, that's a fairy tale. That's like the girl who kissed the frog. I mean, it's just like that. It just doesn't happen that way. There's many more of us that have to develop a prototype, learn, get a real business down, right? You kind of pivot, you get a real business, and then you move forward on it. So that's important. The idea, and this is the same kind of thing as bootstrapping.
Voldi's points are really resonated well. How creative can you be? How lean can you be to as long as you can be, to get up and running? And it's really easy to get, if someone would give you $8 million, right, Bruce? Go develop a company. That's pretty easy. You can go hire some really great people. You can buy some PR people. But the flip side of that is when you have $800, how far can you get on that? And I think when you get down to these meetings and people can see how far you've gotten on $800 or $1,800, I think it goes a long way. What I learned from also was a test before you hire. Once you hire somebody, you're pretty committed. If you have a partner, man, you are really committed. So your idea of testing them out over time really makes a lot of sense. And so on the programming side, it's actually pretty simple to do that. You can hire developers and give them a small project, see how it works out, number one, in their quality, how well you communicate with them, and thirdly, do you actually like them? Do you want to come to work and work with them, or would you dread seeing them in the morning or at the end of the day, right? That's an important part, because when you have a great environment, I believe great products and services come out of that. If you don't, if you have this kind of toxic environment, I don't think you can win long term. So the programming club, excuse me, that you mentioned, do you have any inroads to that? Anybody you know that's still in that programming club?
Well, Chris Ferguson is the head of the computer science department, so he's the guy to contact there.
Great.
Because he always runs it basically. They have different presidents depending on the year.
Okay.
But if you call him, he's the guy. And
Can you connect us, or just tell him about the group? Because I think there's a lot of interest here on making that. There could be opportunity for them and vice versa. Okay, great. Wanted to wrap that up. One of the books he mentioned was Rework. I just read that on Voldi's suggestion. Rework by Jason Fried. Really, really good book. It is kind of the opposite of what you hear most of the time about business. And it's this, right, raise 8 million, shoot for the moon. And Jason Fried's idea is there's no shame in being a profitable, relatively small business and growing incrementally over time. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in creating a product that has quality and having happy customers that pay. And he draws out in there several examples of, I think it was Basecamp was their product. It's a kind of like a work plan product. And he had, I think, 3,000 people that were using it for free, and he's like, no more. And they cut it out and they started charging people for it. Like 85% of the customers said, screw you, I'm out of here. But he obviously made more money with 90% less customers because they were actually paying him. And the product got better. You know why? Because people were paying him. It's amazing how much better you can get if you actually have revenue coming in your company. So I highly recommend that book. The accelerator space that I briefly talked about earlier, I want to explain it's not going to be, it's on the lines of a co-op, in that if you're a one-person shop and you want a place to work, there'll be a place for you. But I want it to be much bigger than that. It's going to be a place where artists and programmers and entrepreneurs and marketing people in this technology space can come together. It's going to be a creative space where people will want to come to. I get a lot of creative vibe from this place here. You'll probably see me a few times a week here. This is my office, because I get a lot of good feelings from this, and that's what I want to create in this accelerator space. So again, if you're interested in being part of that, let me know, because we're starting to put together, the layout. I think my last point was this has only been around. This is number 4, the 4th meeting, and I can't believe people are coming from outside of town. When Bruce told me he came from Thousand Oaks to come to this meeting, I was thinking, wow. We have done no PR. I know that SoCal Tech, it's a newsletter. I don't know if any of you get that. SoCal newsletter? Okay. Bruce, I'm sorry. Ben, yeah. did a quick little write-up about us in that newsletter. So, literally we've done nothing on the PR front, and yet word is starting to get out there. So this is really exciting. I'm excited to see where it's going to go as well. Is anybody, before we wrap up, because we want to get out of here by 8, any questions about the Accelerator overall? Our program, SCV Startup, anything that maybe you're working on, you have questions on?
What is it?
What?
I know nothing about it. What is it?
What is what?
The Accelerator program.
So this is an Accelerator program. What I want to do is I want to get some framework around it and actually get a space where we can have housing. And I want to start incubating companies in that space to launch here in Santa Clarita. The idea for this whole group, like I said, was not networking. I think there's other groups you can do that with. What's really going to hold this together is if we have success stories. So you might get some friendly nudging from me, excuse me, to launch your company. The reason why is we need more of these to happen, with the idea that most of them will fail. But it's okay, because in tech you can fail, and it's actually, you might even be better, you're probably better off failing first and coming back. So the idea of this is to get more startups to launch right here in Santa Clarita. And the way we're going to get that to happen more effectively is with an actual space that we can call our own. And now that we have an investor, a couple opportunities, right? An opportunity and an investor that want to back this thing, I think it's going to happen pretty soon. And I didn't expect this to happen this quick, okay? That answer your question? Okay, cool. Because that will be a space that we can call ours. We can have our sessions there. I'd like to branch out into some of the technology companies here in Santa Clarita and start bridging with them, some other incubators and accelerators around Southern California. So really creating a high energy network, not just here in Santa Clarita, but throughout Southern California, okay? So when I like to hear from you guys about how you found out about the group, because I want to know how people are you getting invites? Are you reading on, the bathroom wall? Where are you finding out about this group? Please, introduce yourself. And lastly, we're running out of time, but let me know if you want to do one of the 60-second profiles next meeting, okay? Because I want to start introducing who you are to the rest of the group. Don't be a mystery, okay? Whether you think you have the greatest thing on earth or perhaps you think you're a total loser with nothing to offer, I want everybody up. Because you'd be surprised at what can come out of this by connecting people. You have a good hold on this, you have a good hold on this, and you connect them, and then we're going to get some startups. I don't believe, we've had many conversations about this, I don't believe the startups that are here today are going to truly be the success stories of SCV Startup. I think it's the people that are here, kind of like, I don't know what I want to do, but I really like this. We'll meet somebody else who's kind of the same way, and then that will merge. And I really believe that will be our future for this group. Not to say that anybody who has a business right now doesn't mean you're going to fail. I'm just letting you know. Okay, that's it. Thank you guys. I appreciate you coming out. Have a great night, and I'll see you next month. Thank you, Voldi.